So this week we are going to be talking about October 31st through November 6th, and it is Scorpio magic season. So we are going to be talking about sex, secrets, the strip club, also psychic awareness versus paranoia. The Sun, Mercury, and Venus are going to be in the deepest, darkest, most passionate signs who are being called to look deeper into how you're sharing your magic. I share a little bit of how I share my magic by mentoring one of the other dancers at the club. We also talk about self-worth, money, and what we value. These are going to be the themes to reflect upon with those you are sharing your strongest bonds with. That's what's in store for us this week, and I hope you enjoyed the episode.
The weekly transit.
Astrology is a language that communicates how the planets and stars influence life on Earth. I'm Scott Tajarian. I'm an interpreter of this language. Join me and my co-host Ingrid Iverson, who helps bring an even more practical look at this astral language. The weekly transit is here to bring clarity to the chaos, so you can ride the planetary waves instead of the planets riding you.
The weekly transit.
Can we talk about your shirt right now?
Yeah.
Do you know what this is?
I do. Well, it's LSU, but also it's the tiger.
Yes.
Which I was like, after I saw it, I was like, okay, tigers, that's mine.
I know. So you're wearing your tiger jewelry necklace.
Oh my
thing,
gosh.
And then you got the LSU. Yeah.
You had introduced me to Spellbound Sky.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I met a woman named Ingrid.
Who works there.
Yeah. And then she just messaged me the other day, her wearing this necklace. And she was like, I finally had to get it. I'm like so obsessed. I've been looking at it for like 2 years. And then, yeah, Astronova.
That's the name of the jewelry person?
I think so. I think her name's Sheila B, but she has a shop in, I think, Grass Valley.
Oh, really?
And then somebody was posting, maybe she was posting pictures about it. But then Epiphany with Tiffany.
Yes.
We went out to dinner one time and she had on a necklace and I was like, oh, I love your necklace. And she's like, oh my God, I love your necklace. And I was like, where? I was like, oh yeah, it's one of my favorite like LA artists. And it's the same person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we both were wearing her jewelry.
Very interesting.
Right?
Yes. I love the synastry.
Me too.
Yeah. Or synergy. Whatever the right word is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll use both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're feeling strong.
I'm feeling strong.
And everybody wants to know what's the latest with the thyroid. I mean, I'm getting so many messages. So if anyone wants to send a message to Ingrid about her thyroid, you can contact her at Ingaru. You don't have to contact me and ask me to give her the message.
I know. Maybe we should put my Instagram on the ad thing or whatever on the video, because I feel like a lot of people write you and then you send me the messages. But if you want to reach out, I'm at Ingaru, INGROO.
Yes. And
my thyroid issue, I have no fucking clue what's happening. I went to a new doctor. He said, you don't have hyperthyroidism and you don't have cancer and you don't have any autoimmune issues like Hashimoto's or Graves. So we don't really know. You have to see a specialist, because before I went to the specialist, they sent me to a surgeon and the surgeon said, all I do is take them out. So you don't need to take it out. I was like, great. Why the fuck did I come here? I don't understand. So it's just been kind of a weird run around. I have an allergy test coming up because I asked for one because they don't really know why. And I don't really feel like that's like an answer to just say I don't know. Yeah. So been trying not to eat like gluten and dairy, which like I don't even, and then I'm supposed to be eating healthy the other day. I don't even eat, what was it? I ended up at Panda Express because I was having a fucking meltdown. And that's like the closest thing to my house. And I was like, it was so expensive for something that wasn't even good. And it wasn't what I was supposed to be eating. And I was just like, I can't even think of a food. I can't think of one food and I don't know how to get it. I don't know how to get a food. Yeah. It was like so crazy. I'm like, this has got to end. Like something is not right. Yeah. And I think just now that I live alone, it's just maybe exacerbated because before I kind of was in community and my partner at the time would, I'm getting ready for work. They would cook me something. I get home after a long shift. there's food waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And now, that's been like a consistent for,
Years.
most of my adult
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
And, maybe in my early 20s, I was in a different place mentally. So I was able to do all those things. I don't know. So doing some digging.
Yeah.
Seeing what I can figure out.
Yeah.
Because something is not right.
I feel like a lot's going on with the mind right now because of Mars retrograde in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the planet that represents communication, but also the conscious mind, how you formulate your thoughts and communicate those thoughts. So I feel like we're in this very prolonged Mercury retrograde. Like Mercury, does it feel that way? I mean,
Yeah,
we just
absolutely.
Yeah, that a lot of people have been saying like it still feels like it's Mercury retrograde, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's because Mars is retrograde in Gemini, and Gemini is the sign that's ruled by Mercury. It represents conscious mind, communication, coordination. Mercury retrograde ended on October 2nd, and it moved out of its retrograde shadow on October 16th. Here we are talking about the week of October 31st, and it still feels like Mercury retrograde. So
100%.
yeah, I think this is something we're going to have to deal with until it moves out of its retrograde shadow, which will be March 15th. The retrograde ends on January 12th, but it's still another 2 months. It takes Mars even longer to get back moving
Up to speed.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, Gemini is also like the twins, which I kind of feel like is pretty chaotic. But it's just like back, forth, and that can create even more confusion if you're not like super grounded. And even if you are super grounded, it's Mars retrograde, so maybe that's just like unsettling, bringing up
Yes.
some stuff from the past, and you're like,
well, it's creating conflicts with communication. Mars is the planet of conflict and aggression, and the god of war, and it's in the sign of communication. I went back and looked. I know I mentioned on the last podcast that I'd looked up a bunch of dates, and I hadn't had time to go back far enough to see when the last time Mars was retrograde only in Gemini. I put it in the forecast on the website, but I hadn't mentioned it here, and I feel like now's a good time to mention it. It really kind of blew my mind because the last time Mars was retrograde in Gemini and only Gemini, because there's been multiple retrogrades where Mars begins retrograde in Cancer and moves back to Gemini, or it begins retrograde in Gemini and moves back to Taurus.
yeah.
But just only Gemini, which is where it is right now. It's only going to be in Gemini, this retrograde. The last time Mars only retrograded in Gemini was October 1943 to January 1944, which was during World War II. And the time before that was October 1864 to January 1865, which was during the American Civil War.
Fuck.
So those are both times where people were having difficulty communicating with one another, and so they were going to war with each other to solve their differences or clear the confusion. But this is really a challenged period for us to try to gather more information before we act and be extra patient with ourselves and others.
That's what it feels like I'm doing right now, gathing.
Yes, gathering information. Yes.
And it's annoying and exhausting, but yeah, I feel like I'm trying to be patient. I was getting really pissed off last week. So are you fucking kidding me? Did I just drive to Santa Monica for like literally nothing? I drove to the wrong office. I drove to Burbank, where there's a UCLA center. I get there to look for the suite number. It's not the right fucking address. I was like, this.
They gave you the wrong address?
No, I just thought it was in the same complex. I don't know. I thought it was part of the
center. So see,
center.
that's a retrograde thing right there. This is why you have to like slow down and double check the address.
I'm so annoyed.
You're acting out of like anxiousness,
Absolutely.
And out of that anxiety, you're going to the wrong place.
Yeah, just rushing.
So stop rushing. Slow down. Take your time. It's like coming over here right today. I'm like, I'm not going to rush. Not in a rush. You said between 1:30 and 2, and I showed up 15 minutes later. But I'm like, whatever. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it throws the whole day, and it threw my whole day into chaos because I didn't slow down for 5 minutes before I left the house.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I should have probably been 5 minutes late to that first thing. Oh, and then I forgot my like CD with all my like MRIs and shit, and I was like, should I go back to my house? And I was like, I'm already running late, and then I drove myself to the wrong place.
Yeah.
I was like, if I would have just went back home and been like, okay, I need to regroup, spent the extra 5 minutes, I would have ended up at the right office.
Yeah, exactly. So take your time and spend an extra 5 minutes. And if you're late, you're late.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, especially.
Hopefully not.
I mean, especially
maybe
in
it is.
LA, people are very like forgiving. It's
Exactly. There's so much traffic here. It's like,
everybody's 15 minutes late for everything.
Yes. I mean, I try to leave early, but then sometimes, it doesn't even matter if you leave early. There's a wreck that's not on the map, and all of a sudden you're slowing down and you're sitting there. So, yeah, slow down. Everyone needs to slow down and take their time.
And then before we get into the week, you had mentioned the forecast. I just wanted to remind everyone that the weekly transit is more than just a podcast. If you go to the website, it's meant to go with the blog we have there called The Forecast. It kind of is it is an overview of everything we talk about on here. Scott goes over all the questions that he asks me, so you can use them as journal prompts. And also there's the basics of astrology, the book that me and Scott put together. And it's got all the beautiful images that we share on YouTube and Spotify. And then you can follow along with the forecast on the website. So it's meant to go all three together to learn the language of astrology and get like a better understanding of it so you can use it more intuitively. Yeah. Anything else before we get into the week?
Yeah, I have a couple announcements. Number one, I do readings. So if you're interested in learning about your astrological code, it's my purpose to help you understand who you are so that you can accept, appreciate, and love the divine unique miracle that is you. If you're curious about how these transits are affecting you directly, contact me for a reading. You can schedule it directly through the website, theweeklytransit.com. I get so many compliments about the website. Ingrid is the amazing designer that put that together. And I have one other announcement, but yes, you were going to say something.
I'm just doing a bunch of production stuff lately and working on a bunch of projects. And I thought I would put it out there that I produce, edit, audio, video.
Yes.
I do music videos, commercials.
Exactly.
Location management, production coordinator, anything you could dream of, making books. I have another book I'm doing for Megan, actually. She wrote a children's book, so I'm going to try to help her finish that.
Amazing.
So if anyone has any fun shit they're working on, hit me up, and I'd love to help you in some way.
Yes.
Work together, because that's what I love to do.
Yes. Ingrid edits this whole podcast, and she's done this will be 134 episodes now or something. So Ingrid's a pro. Like, she knows what she's doing here. Yeah. So and then one other announcement, I was asked to be a guest with Delisa Hawking. She's the psychic who did the planets and predictions. Yeah. So she invited me back on her platform to talk about November 8th, which is the coming full moon in Taurus. It's also the midterm elections in the United States. So we got into a really long conversation, about 30, 45 minutes, that I will be sharing. The link will be in the show notes for this podcast and next week's as well. So I encourage you to check it out if you want to get in deep to what's going on with the planets and stars on November 8th. Of course, we'll cover it here a little more briefly, not 30 minutes on one day, but
Yeah, and then also in the show notes, there's links to all the stuff, the book, readings for Scott, but also there is time markers. So if you want to skip ahead or go look at something that happened in the past, there's time markers for each day of the week. You click on Monday, it goes right to Monday. They're super helpful. I use them for myself personally, and I love them. So,
yes.
oh, and then if you want to support the podcast, fuck, there's so many announcements. If you want to support the podcast, in the show notes, you can click support and you can donate $1, $5, or $10. And that helps us, do more of what we love, sharing the planets and stars with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody that supports us here.
Yes.
We appreciate you.
So I'm going to give a shout out to Larry, Deborah, Haley, Libby, Janelle, Clarissa, Janine, Ricky, Amaranth, Vincent, Michelle, Catherine, Merdinas, Brenna, Stephanie, Cassie, Grace, Lori, Carrie, Annie, Brooke, Johnny, Joanne, and Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for your support.
We appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so shall we begin the week, Ingrid?
Let's do it.
This is the week of October 31st to November 6th. We begin the week on Monday, October 31st, with Mercury, the messenger of the gods, guide of souls to the underworld. Very appropriate for this Halloween. In Scorpio, the deepest, darkest, most passionate sign, fixed water, symbolized by the scorpion. Is it no coincidence, that Halloween, the Day of the Dead, all this is occurring every year during Scorpio season? This is when the veil is thin, when the planets are getting clustered up in the deepest, darkest, most passionate sign, the sign that represents the world that we cannot see.
What do you
world that we cannot see.
What do you consider? It's also, this is like the occult, right?
The occult. So the occult is something that people talk about it, but unless you're a part of it, you don't really know.
And it's not even like a seeing. It's more like you just said, like a knowing, the things we can't see.
Yes. But when planets move into Scorpio, it becomes more clear.
Okay.
It's easier to see.
The messages or whatever.
Yes. It's interesting because years ago when Alyssa Milano texted out or tweeted out "Me Too," that was like the day that Jupiter moved into Scorpio.
Expanding so like the secrets?
Yes. And sex, right? Because Scorpio is sex as well. Scorpio rules the sexual organs. So it's how people merge together and share their energy and create the magic of birth of another human being, a living soul. So that's what Scorpio's about. And today, Mercury is squaring off with the moon, the planet of emotions, in the fixed air sign, symbolized by the water bearer, Aquarius. So there's some challenges today.
Well, I mean, I always really like the moon in Aquarius because it's like an emotional sign, but in a non-emotional...
It's an emotional planet.
Yes.
In a non-emotional sign.
Yes.
Yes.
But then it's which is... For me, it feels very settling because I'm a Cancer moon and I always feel so sensitive and so emotional, and I love when I can feel more disconnected. But maybe it's that disconnection in combination with like this really deep sign. It's very confusing when you're like, oh, this is this really passionate sign, but I'm going to be very logical about it. It's like these two opposing.
Well, and it's interesting too because Mercury is a very logical planet. In a very emotional sign. So you have an emotional planet in a logical sign with the moon in Aquarius, and you have a logical planet in an emotional sign with Mercury in Scorpio. So what does this mean? I mean, it's like when I think of Mercury in Scorpio, I think of secrets and maybe paranoia and manipulation. That's the shadow side.
Because that's not logical. Like paranoia is not usually a logical thing. It's like built on like some facade in our minds.
Totally. But there can be like the light side could be like psychic awareness.
Oh,
Like,
because
I
you
know
feel.
yes, something's happening here, and
I
people are
don't know what
like,
it
I
is.
don't know what it is, or people are like, no, you're being paranoid. It's like, I'm not being paranoid.
I
And
logically
then,
know
well, that's
this.
how you bring in the logic. So it's like for instance, it's so funny because I was hanging out with my mom this weekend, and we were on the coast near where my aunt has a house, and I really wanted to see my aunt. I haven't seen her since COVID started. My mom's like, I don't think she's there. She's not there. We looked yesterday. She's not there. And then I was like, let's just go by. I think she might be there. And we went by, and she was there. And my mom was like, oh my God, I can't believe like you knew. And I'm like, well, it's Scorpio season, and we got to trust our psychic awareness. So if you're getting that psychic hit,
It doesn't always mean you're paranoid or whatever. Like,
it doesn't,
trust yourself.
but we did the logical thing, which is just go and look. If you're getting that psychic hit, look to see what's there.
I like that. That's
Use
great
logic.
advice. Yeah, I mean, you can ask questions or you can check something out. Go do some digging.
Yes.
Are you being paranoid, or are you just feeling like something's off because it's off?
And when you think about the digital age too, that's what Aquarius is about. It's about technology. Technology is Aquarius. So moving on to Tuesday, November 1st, we've got the moon again in Aquarius, now squaring off with another planet in Scorpio, Venus, Lady Luck, the goddess of love and beauty. So
Whatever we found out yesterday is now going to be like affecting our relationships.
yeah,
Somebody was lying. Or somebody was being paranoid.
Somebody was being paranoid, or somebody was lying.
And
Somebody's cheating on somebody, or somebody's not cheating on anybody, but they're being accused of cheating on somebody. Who
there's
knows?
some jealousy happening.
Exactly. But there may be some kind of cold reaction to it with that moon in Aquarius.
Where it's like, oh, maybe somebody's cheating, and you're like, well, you did this to me, basically. Like, I wasn't getting my needs met, so I had to find somebody else.
Yeah.
Or someone's being jealous.
That's logical, right?
Mm-hmm.
I told you I needed XYZ and you weren't giving it to me, so I had to find someone else to give it to me.
So there's that side. And then the
Yeah.
other side is, oh, like, I feel like you're, something's going on, and like I feel jealous or something, and the other person's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just being myself. There's nothing to worry about. Shut the fuck up. Like,
And that's
I don't want to baby you.
Yes, that's another like Aquarius trait,
Really?
is independence. It's like, give me some space. So, I mean, this is the real challenge here with the moon moving through Aquarius and the sun and Mercury and Venus in Scorpio. Is Scorpio like wants that bond? It's like, no, we're together. We're one. We're one soul.
Aquarius like, get the fuck off me.
Exactly. Give me some space. Like we can be together, but that doesn't mean that.
Don't smother me.
Exactly. I need my independence within this relationship. So, how can you find the balance between passion and logic and independence?
I think those are all very important, because once you find that balance, then you actually attain the freedom that you're looking for.
Yeah.
I think when you're communicating about things, maybe if we're not communicating, then these issues come up. But then maybe you still feel that discomfort. Oh, your partner's going away for the weekend with their friends or something, where you're like, oh, I'm feeling uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
But being logical about it and maybe just expressing it and not making it a big thing or being paranoid, being like, hey, I feel a little jealous. I'm feeling weird. Can you just reassure me that everything's fine? And they're like, yeah, I'm just going for the weekend with my friends. It has nothing to do with you. I just like hanging out with my friends. I like having alone time. Like, you always like having alone time too. So
Right.
there's nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
Like, this is good for us.
Yes.
So maybe like if we have some like extra compassion, putting it out there for the other person that's feeling paranoid.
Yes.
Instead of just being like, you're smothering me.
Or also saying like, are you okay?
Yeah, why are you smothering me?
Yeah. What are you feeling here? It feels like to me like you've shut down, or maybe they're smothering you, but also maybe they're detaching from you more than what you're. Yeah.
Totally.
It's like, you're ignoring me. Why? What's going on?
Yeah, I think being direct usually helps.
Yes. So moving on to Wednesday, November 2nd, Venus continuing on in Scorpio is now opposing the North Node, which is the soul's purpose, karmic pathway of the soul in the fixed earth sign symbolized by the bull. The North Node in Taurus, so it's about values. So this is where we were starting the communication. So now let's get into what's important to me. Well, it's important to me, like I value being in a relationship with somebody that's going to communicate with me when they're feeling insecure. If you're feeling paranoid, I need to know. And if I'm feeling paranoid, I'm going to let you know because I want that stability and trust in the relationship. So maybe that's what this is about. How can you share with your close personal friends your self-worth, what you value?
Okay, I have like the perfect example.
Yes.
So a friend of mine, he started this business venture with another friend. And I was honestly like a little bit jealous because it had to do with food and I really love food. And I was like, oh, like I was super excited for him, but like there was just a little bit of jealousy that like I wasn't invited to be a part of it. And he asked me the opinion on the branding and the food and stuff. But still I was like, oh, I would always love to do something, even though it's not like what I normally do. It's just like a passion. And then now that didn't end up working out. He has a new project. He told me about it. And so I went to his house. We tried all the food he's making. He asked for all my feedback. I started doing some branding stuff for him. And then and he's doing another business venture with this same guy. And the same thing happened where I was just like, I felt kind of like, I love to just be included and it's fun, but I was like, oh, I would love to like do something like this, like more in my life, trying to make food a bigger part and community a bigger part of my life. That's been kind of like a goal that you've been pushing me towards, like, you know, cooking and eating together. And I was like, oh, something like this would be perfect. And I told him, I'm like, I'll work for free. Like, I don't even need anything, but I need for food and community to be a bigger part of my life. Maybe I can help you in some way when you have an event. Like, I'd love to come just like food prep and like just be around the whole thing. But there was still an underlying little bit of jealousy. And, you know, I didn't mention
That's
it.
Scorpio.
It's not my business.
That's the Scorpio right there.
So then he called me and he texted me, I had a dream about you. And then we got on the phone and we were supposed to meet more about just food stuff. He wanted more feedback. He's like, oh, do you want me to tell you about the dream?
Yeah.
Or like, I've been sitting on it for a few days. I wasn't sure if I should share it with you because I didn't know how you'd feel about it. I'm like, what the fuck is this dream? He's like, oh, my dream was that it didn't work out with my current business partner and that you said that you wanted to partner with me on this project.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, what? That's so crazy. Because and then I told him, I was like, you know, I've actually, when you told me about the project, I was obviously excited about you, but like underneath I was a little bit jealous, because I would love to do that. But I wasn't trying to insert myself in your like already existing business. You know, I offered my help obviously because I love being a part of it.
Yeah.
But I thought that was so crazy because it's not like we really had any conflict, but there was definitely some like little underlying like jealousy happening with my like bonds.
And how did he receive that?
Oh, he was just like, oh my God, I would love, like, I'm telling you the dream because I would like really like you to be a part of it. And I just wasn't sure if you were interested or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, like, yeah, really exciting. But I thought that was really interesting. I feel like that's also like Taurus, the material world. Then it like manifested right here where it was like, okay, are you going to talk about your thing? Because like that's like all laid out for you to have the conversation.
Yes. Wow.
So I think I am going to do something with him. We're talking about doing some like dinner parties or helping him with his pop-up. And yeah, so I'm excited.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
That's
I feel like that's also that very psychic awareness shit. He had a fucking psychic dream about this.
Exactly.
Some fucking Scorpio shit happening.
Exactly. You were like telepathy, like into his brain.
I couldn't believe that he called me with that dream. I was like, did I say something?
You just penetrate. That's what Mercury and Scorpio does. It like, and when planets are in Scorpio, like they penetrate. Like think of the scorpion. When it stings you, it penetrates your skin. So when planets are in Scorpio, you have the ability to like penetrate into other people's psyche. Yeah.
Yeah, the unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, do you say the unconscious or the subconscious?
I say the unconscious.
Unconscious,
But
okay.
Scorpio's not really unconscious. Unconscious is more Pisces.
Pisces.
So it's like just your psyche, which I don't know if there's a difference between the two, but that's what
I mean,
how I qualify it.
interesting. Yeah, that makes.
I think
Well-
of Pisces as intuitive
Mm-hmm.
and Scorpio as psychic.
Okay.
So
They are. They are tied together.
they're tied together, and they're
They're
both
both
water
water.
signs, exactly. But there's something more sharp about the Scorpio energy, like
Okay.
psychic and penetrating someone's mind, and as opposed to
It's a little more smooth and like
intuition.
feeling it out and like.
That's Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
Pisces is feeling it.
Yeah,
feeling
they're
it out.
opposites in that
Scorpio
way.
is just like,
Cutting through.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, they're like the same but also opposites in that realm.
They're very similar.
But there's like a different.
But there's a
energy behind
difference.
them.
Absolutely. There's definitely a difference. Yeah. Scorpio, I mean, you just think of like the what?
I just looked at Thursday and then no, it's like Scorpio and Pisces.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, it's Scorpio and Pisces, and then there's the moon and the sun. Like there's just all oppositions of the same type of energies.
Well, this is a trine. This is supportive. So I don't think of it as opposing. I think of it as supporting one another.
Okay.
This is the type of energy that flows. Pisces and Scorpio. So the moon's in Pisces, which is mutable water, symbolized by the fish. And then the sun, the planet of vitality, in Scorpio. So the sun is bringing vitality to the moon, to compassion, through that psychic awareness. And the moon is bringing its softer, nurturing energy to the sun, to your identity, to the core of who you are. So this is really an opportunity for you to be very compassionate in your karmic bonds.
I mean, I feel like it was kind of building. There was some conflict, and then there was maybe some communication about it. And then now it's like, now that you've opened that box, now there's like a gift here where you can really like be soft with each other.
Yes.
And compassionate.
There's a lot of feeling here. A lot of feeling. Scorpio's the most passionate sign. Pisces is the most compassionate sign. So
it's a very healing day.
Very healing. Very healing if you're willing to go deep with somebody. Who would you like to get really deep with? Who would you like to be really vulnerable and open with? And what would you like to share? What kind of magic would you like to share with this individual? If you're intentional about it, this can be a very healing day. A very magical day.
Well, also I think about going deep can be really scary. And then I started thinking,
that's that vulnerability.
Yeah. And then I also started thinking like healing, when we say healing, a lot of people think it's just like positive, but healing is very uncomfortable a lot of the time. If you're doing some deep work, like that vulnerability, that fear, that's all in there. You have to look at it, and that's where you get the healing.
Yeah.
You have to experience that discomfort of the vulnerability to be able to heal.
Yes. This is like sex where both people are crying afterwards.
I love that. Yeah, you're like so exposed.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's Thursday. Moving on to Friday, November 4th. Now the moon is continued on through Pisces and forms a conjunction with Jupiter, the god of thunder, lord of justice, the planet of luck and expansion. Jupiter is the planetary ruler of Pisces. We're in this period right now where Jupiter moved back into Pisces on October 27th and doesn't move out of Pisces until December 19th. So from October 27th to December 19th, we have an opportunity to go back through our unconscious and do this very special work. So Jupiter was in this exact same point where it's going to be from October 27th to December 19th is where Jupiter was from May 1st to May 10th earlier this year. So go back and think about what was going on in your life between May 1st and May 10th. Now, understand that on December 19th, when Jupiter leaves Pisces, it's not coming back again until 2033.
So this is an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. It's very special. But what makes it even more special is Neptune, the other planetary ruler of Pisces, is also in Pisces with Jupiter. And the next time that Jupiter and Neptune will be together, the two planetary rulers of Pisces in Pisces, after December 19th, will be in the year 2176.
And that's the planet of like confusion and like cloudiness, right?
Yes, but also compassion.
Okay. The first thing I think of is like you maybe dug up some stuff where you were doing some healing work earlier in the year in May.
Mm-hmm.
And you maybe thought you worked it out. You're like, oh, it was a quick fix. It was 10 days. I did some work and now I'm like healed.
Mm-hmm.
And then now there's like some deep shit going on that you really have to excavate.
Yes.
And it can be cloudy in there. You really have to sort through your shit. It's not always easy to just like pick something up and like throw it out. It's like woven in your mind. It's not as easy as cleaning the house.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's woven in your mind. So you have to unweave it. Or
like untangle
it. Yes. This is multi-generational. That's how I think of it, because the last time that Jupiter and Neptune were in Pisces prior to December 28th of 2021 was in the 1850s.
Oh, fuck.
And the next time they're going to be together in this sign is 2176.
Yeah.
21, the year 2176. That's 154 years from now.
Okay.
So nobody alive right now is going to experience this again, and your children are not going to experience this again.
So this is like once in every other lifetime?
Something like that. That's why I say it's like multi-generational. So when you think back of everything that's going on in your unconscious, where does it stem from? It's I think of the moon here too. It's like your roots, the people who raised you, and the ones who raised them, and the ones who raised them, and back and so on. Their psychological baggage is passed down to you to carry. And then you're passing your psychological baggage down to the next generation. And then they pass it down to the next generation. So what can you clear with regards to your psychological baggage? The guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame. Show yourself compassion so you can integrate these thought patterns and memories with understanding, forgiveness, and love. Clear some of that psychological baggage so that your children and your grandchildren have less to carry.
Yeah. And then also it's happening during Scorpio season. These are our karmic bonds. So it is like you're clearing it for the benefit of these other people that you're bonded with closely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How you share your magic.
Mm-hmm.
How you engage energetically with other people.
I mean, I think a lot of people, maybe this is rude to say, but a lot of people have kids very unconsciously. They just get pregnant and have a baby. And it's like, did you put any thought into working on yourself before you did this? Because otherwise you're repeating the same patterns. It's like if I had a kid, I would want to make sure that I was the best version of myself so as to give them a chance to have a lighter experience than I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know everyone's thoughts on like planning and kids and everything, but I just think that that's important work to be doing if you plan on having kids, especially, or if you already do have children, then that's like extra important for you in this time.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, I feel like you're like neglecting your family in a way by not doing this work. It's not fair.
I don't think that most people think in this way, I mean, most people don't even have any idea what's going on astrologically. So, yeah, I don't think people think, well, am I ready to have... I mean, some people do, but I think a lot of people, it's like, I'm fucking horny, and,
I'm like
I
in
want to
love
fuck
or
this
something.
girl. Or, yeah, I'm in love, and it's this passionate thing, but there's no thought behind what are we doing? What are the consequences
you
of
can.
this act?
Yeah, it can just be like all of your chemicals are happening, but that's not like a logical approach to like bringing life on into the world.
Yeah, it's animalistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not putting any real conscious awareness into
Or like
we're
intention.
creating another life. Yeah.
Like we're over here setting like intentions for each new moon, and people are just like popping out a kid with like no intention. It's just like, bro, I'm gonna need you to just like calm down.
Yes.
I mean, I don't have kids in my near future or anywhere really on the horizon, but I would like to think if I was entertaining that thought, that I would be like, okay, I want to do these things first. More not even like career type of stuff, more like energetic work stuff.
Have you ever seen that movie Idiocracy?
I don't know.
I mean, you could look it up on YouTube, but there's like, I think the first scene in that movie is like a husband and wife talking about like, well, we're gonna wait to have kids.
I think you told me this.
Yeah, and then there's like split screen with this other family that's just like popping out kids left and right, and just populating, and you just see the stark difference between the two. It's very hilarious.
I should watch it.
Yeah. Anyone out there knows. Saturday, November 5th. So this is a part of that intention. And when we think about the new moon in Scorpio, which occurred on October 25th, that was about setting your intentions. It was with Venus, the sun, the moon, setting your intentions to establish what you value about yourself and how you would like to share your energy and what you would like to receive from that energetic exchange, how you want to feel, feeling lifted rather than drained. So when we're looking at the sun today on Saturday, November 5th, in Scorpio, opposing the North Node, which we talked about earlier in the week with Venus, this is like a different instrument playing the same note. We get it 3 times this week. We got it on Wednesday with Venus. Today we get it with the sun. And then tomorrow we get it with another planet. But 3 notes, 1 note, 3 instruments. And the note is, what do you value about yourself? What's the status of your self-worth? Do the individuals that you share your magic with honor and respect your self-worth, or do they reflect your self-worth? Do you honor, reflect, or respect the self-worth of those that you are sharing your magic with?
And also, I think if you answer these questions, whatever was happening earlier in the week with either paranoia or jealousy, the answers to where those are coming from is going to happen today if you're kind of asking yourself these questions.
Yes.
Because that is where the root of those things come from, is
exactly
not knowing the answers to these questions.
So that's where the paranoia comes.
You're not valuing yourself.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Exactly.
Or you wouldn't be having this panic over something that's nothing.
Yes. You got to call it out. So moving on to Sunday, November 6th, the planet of communication now, Mercury, opposing the North Node.
I mean, it's this week more than... I mean, it always happens how each of the planets flow into the next sign. Like, each day goes into the next... this whole flow. But this week especially just is like each day you just see it move just slightly, turning the dial in each of the different pieces.
Yes.
I mean, now today is communication, Mercury communication in Scorpio.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like you go back to Wednesday and it's Venus, and so you're using your senses, you're feeling things out in the relationship. Does this person that I'm bonded with, are they valuing me in the way that I intended for people to value me? during the new moon in Scorpio. And then Saturday comes and now the sun is bringing illumination to that same area. So now you can actually see, oh, they are valuing me, or no, they're not valuing me.
Or I'm not valuing myself.
Or I'm not valuing myself, or I'm not valuing them.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And now Sunday comes, and now it's Mercury. Now we can have a conversation about it.
Now we got to talk about it.
Yes. So what's the conversation that you
Yep.
want to have?
Yeah, what did you learn yesterday when you asked yourselves these questions? I think Saturday is kind of a pivotal day in the week to really ask ourselves this, because I think that can be very healing and make it all worth it if we get to the bottom of it. Then it's not for nothing. It's not just to have an uncomfortable week. It's to learn more about the people we're bonded with and learn more about ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. So, big week.
Scorpio is going deep.
Yes, going deep. Who are you merging with? Are you being respected and honored? Are you honoring them and respecting them? Is the energetic exchange, does it feel good? Does it feel good? Do you feel lifted? Do you feel drained? Are you draining people? Are you lifting people? Questions?
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
thinking.
I just want to answer a couple questions that always come up. Number one, if you're in Australia or in New Zealand or Singapore or any countries on that side of the earth that's listening to this podcast, thank you so much for listening. We're a day behind you. So if we're talking about Sunday, it's your Monday. We always get like the retrograde planets.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
If you're born with retrograde planets, so I think of retrograde planet. I think of yourself as a tree. The planets that are direct are the branches we can all see. The retrograde planets are the roots. That's something that you're experiencing more internally. So if you have retrograde planets, wherever that planet is, in whatever sign, whatever house, it's more of an internal experience than something that your friends or acquaintances or family would know about you. And if you're curious to know more, theweeklytransit.com, schedule an appointment with me.
So I have another question. This one's from Jessica King. She says, thank you. And she enjoys your wisdom and really enjoys the Chiron chats. She wants to know if her Chiron and Sun, what if her Chiron and her Sun are in the same house?
Same house?
God, I can't say anything. Same house, 9th house Gemini. It's a battle right now, Sun, Moon, Rising. That was 2 weeks ago. But then also, I don't know if it's the same person, but then someone else wrote in this similar question. No, it is the same person.
Okay. They really want this question answered.
Jessica King's going through it right now.
So 9th house Gemini. So if anyone who's born with the Sun or Chiron in the same sign and house, there is some sort of a wound to your identity, because your identity is in the sign and the house that the wound is in. So anyone who's born with Chiron in Gemini, that's you, Ingrid. It's a wound to communication, to listening, to asking
Chiron...
questions.
Oh, no,
it's
never
in
mind.
The first house.
I was started thinking about my North Node. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a wound to communication, to listening, to asking questions, to maybe being afraid to ask the questions. The 9th house is about philosophy, religion, higher learning, higher education. So maybe there's a wound in that area as well. But at the same time, you identify as a communicator, you identify as somebody who's spiritual, who loves to travel. Higher education is maybe something that's important to you. Think of it also as the sun is bringing vitality to this area. And Chiron is not just a wound, it is the ancient wisdom that is unlocked through healing the wound. So in order to heal the wound, it's important to remember the story of Chiron, which I've told many times on this podcast, but it's about helping others heal. Helping others heal. So you help others heal by maybe communicating or asking others about their pain and suffering, and then by listening to the story of their pain and suffering, they may ask you about, well, have you ever gone through anything like this? And then you'll shock them by saying, yes, I went through all these different things, and they'll be shocked because they don't see you for your wound. Especially if your sun is in the same house and sign as the wound, it doesn't seem like you would be wounded in that area. So that's not something that others would easily recognize.
I mean, I know less about, this area, but the first thing that comes to mind when you put all these pieces together is like Gemini is the twins.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe you have two parts of yourself that are not integrated.
Yes.
And
such a great point.
So you almost like you don't know yourself, like you don't know which side you should choose. And so you feel like maybe you're hiding one part of yourself and you're not your true self. So like finding out your true self would make you feel like lighter, but also just accepting that we have different parts of ourselves and it's not really necessarily, you don't have to pick one. I'm like, I can be a successful producer and work on like high level commercials, or I can be a stripper at this ratchet ass strip club and be like screaming at somebody because they want to fucking like throw a stupid dollar crumpled up at me. It's just like they're very different worlds, but the more I am accepting both sides of myself, because before I didn't put it out, we didn't really talk about it on the podcast, and I hadn't really told my family. Like, I wasn't a secret, but I also hadn't shared it, so it still was really a secret. I was like telling myself that I wasn't hiding it, but I was. And yeah, the more I'm accepting these different sides of myself, the more I think I am accepted.
That's brilliant.
And it like heals my wound. I'm like, okay, it's fine to just be whoever I am, even if it makes no fucking sense. It doesn't have to make sense. That's just who we are.
Exactly.
We don't have to explain anything to anyone.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense, but that's what's great about it. That's what makes you special and unique. I love that, what you just shared. Brilliant. Brilliant. Such a great perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like you have helped me really like push me to put myself out there more. You're like, you are a producer. And I was like, am I though? But I feel like I'm like a stripper. And you're like, but you are both of those things. And that's great.
Exactly. You don't have to fit into a box. I'm just kind of shocked what you just said, because I was like, oh wow, I remember like when we first started this podcast, you never talked about the fact that you work in a strip club, and that came out here, and that's how your family found out.
Yeah.
So
my Aries North node right there. Putting it out there, putting my face out there.
But at the same time, you're also a brilliant editor and creative person and producer. You're the type of person that can just get things done. So yeah, I mean, whatever people think about people dancing in a strip club, it's like you're a unique individual.
Also, I feel like recently I have like unlocked something new at the club. Like I've been there 3 years and I always feel like I was like very naturally good at it. And somehow I feel like I'm like integrating this more into my being, and somehow have like accepted this identity in a new way where I'm like really taking ownership of it instead of just like going to try to get money. I'm like, oh, this is funding my other projects. Like, this is why I'm doing it, because it allows me to take on creative projects that I love, that I want to like further my career in. And now for some reason, I feel like I'm just embodying this character that I think I've been like playing a character. I'm like, oh no, I am this person. So I need to be like putting my whole self into it. And I think it's becoming more rewarding for me.
Wow. You're accepting that character as, no, this is me.
And like investing in that character.
Yes.
Like if you're an actress, you're going to acting classes all the time. You're taking workshops, you're doing shit. If you're a writer, you're like, people are always like learning and growing in their field, but like at the club, that's not necessarily the focus. No one's ever talking about that. And there was like a new girl. She'd only been there for like a couple weeks or something, like in the industry. And she'd worked a couple of shifts and she was like, yeah, I'm really new. And I just gave her like a whole rundown of like all the things that she should be doing to be successful. Because she was like, I don't know if it's working. And I was like, it's working. If I could go back in time and do everything all over again, I would have started doing this 10 fucking years ago, because I would be rich. I would be killing it. Like,
Because you didn't start stripping until
33.
you at this club.
Yeah.
You said you worked there 3 years. That's when you started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So I don't know. Now I feel like it's just becoming a bigger part of me and healing that wound. I'm like being able to accept both sides of myself is really, it just feels good. And then like, I felt like it was the Chiron wound of like healing myself and helping someone else heal was like seeing this other girl being like, I don't know about this. And I'm like, actually I do know. And like, yeah, it is scary at the beginning, but you're fine. Like you're going to learn. I sent her some like Instagram. There's like people on Instagram that share all their sales tricks and all their stuff. And I was like, I keep track of my money. These are like all the things like at restaurants, every shift you have a meeting and you go over, okay, are you saying these things? Are you selling dessert? Are you greeting every person within this many minutes? Have they 2-bite rule of the, did you check to see
back.
There's all these rules, but at the club, there is no training. There's no check-ins. There's no nothing to help you get further in your career. So a lot of people are just struggling forever.
They don't know what they're doing.
No, nobody knows what they're doing. So anyways, I felt like that was my way of like, also healing that wound where I was like, okay, I'm going to like help this girl see that like this could be possibly like a really good thing for her.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome, Ingrid.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Scott.
You're welcome.
I will see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Weekly Transit. Follow us on Instagram for daily updates about the planetary alignments and how to work with the energy. If this podcast is helping you navigate life more gracefully, please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and share with your friends. If you're ready to go deeper, book a personal reading with Scott or sign up for his new moon, full moon class at theweeklytransit.com.
The Weekly Transit.